Hi, this is John Hood from Infinite Lives. Welcome to our game show, Meet the Games, Episode 2. I am joined, of course, by my co-host, Dan Paredes. Hi, Dan.
Hey, we got a full slate today. We got 4 games to look at, so we got no time to waste.
No dilly-dallying.
No dilly-dallying at all.
Alright, so we're going to jump right into it. The first game we're going to take a look at is Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris.
They made another Lara Croft game?
They did.
Oh, okay.
Let's take a look. I've had some fond memories of the Tomb Raider series, whether it was navigating the canals in Venice, jumping and shooting in all its pixelated glory, to the more recent endeavors exploring Lara's origins and watching some gruesome death scenes. As much as I enjoyed the reboot of the franchise, and am looking forward to the sequel, I was still on the lookout for a simple tomb raiding game with no real deep story. Just some solid platforming and mild action involved. On a lark, I decided to pick up the latest in the isometric series that began with Guardian Light, Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, based mostly on the positive feedback that I had seen online. And while there are some things that I like about the game, overall I'm still kind of mixed on the experience as a whole. The game was clearly designed as a multiplayer experience, but being the single-player gamer I mostly am, I was endeavoring to raid this tomb solo. The game doesn't seem to penalize you much for playing this way, although it's readily apparent that many of the puzzles can be solved much quicker with a partner or two helping out. The gameplay itself is pretty solid. I feel, however, that the isometric perspective really does make platforming less than ideal, as there were several instances where I wish I had a better sense of my place in the world. There were instances where I found myself having to redo a particular jump due to the camera perspective. This, in tandem with the movement being kind of floaty, made some areas hard to navigate, resulting in my death a few too many times. Luckily, the autosave is fairly generous, so there's not too much of a penalty. The core of the game appears to be a score attack, and you're graded at the end of each tomb based on your score, which I'm not a huge fan of. I would rather have just explored the game on its own and had the gameplay drive my desire to continue. It doesn't help that you have to collect a lot of gems, which allow you to open chests with gear. But there are like a million chests, with no real indication as to which chests are worthwhile. I found myself opening these chests randomly just to see what was in there, but honestly all the items I found were pretty forgettable.
You hurry towards your deaths.
On the whole, it seems like a decent enough title, and I think my opinion might increase if I play it with a couple of friends, but right now I just feel like the game isn't quite what I was hoping for. I would recommend it for someone who is interested in a good group game, but it does not quite scratch the itch I was looking for in a Tomb Raider game.
We've brought another of your fragments, Osiris.
This is John from Infinite Lives, and at least I don't have to watch another one of Lara's gruesome deaths for a while. Or at least until Rise of the Tomb Raider comes out.
Wishes us to see.
I sure hope you're right.
Osiris had this clockwork built to model the heavens.
Set is wicked, but clever, with Kepri's powers.
And that was Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris. So, John, you didn't really seem to like that game that much.
No, it's not a game I think is meant to be played single player. I want to give it a second shot as a multiplayer game. We've been trying to get that going, but...
Yeah, unfortunately we didn't have any time this week to actually play it together.
Like I said in the video, I pretty much covered all of my real qualms with the video. It's not what I was hoping for.
Yeah.
I had heard good things about it, tried it out. Turns out it's not that type of game.
But it kind of looks like a Diablo game.
It is. So that's the exact perspective you get. You can, it's 4 players. You can see that right there. It's designed to be played multiplayer. But the thing about the difference between Diablo and this is that Diablo is not a platformer, and that's just a straight up action game.
Yeah.
This is a platformer. So that isometric perspective doesn't necessarily work as well for this type of game.
Yeah, I think there's some praise to be said for trying something different with that, tried and true dungeon crawler Diablo-esque game. But mixed in with what were you saying? The controls were like
it's floaty.
Yeah, it's mixed in with floaty controls like platforming is not really too great.
No, you need precise controls, especially in this kind of game where there are platforms that are very narrow. And while Lara can grab onto them, it's a lot of times I found myself just missing the platform entirely. So.
Yeah, and that's an interesting note because in the next game that we're going to look at, Grow Home, floaty controls is kind of the name of the game.
Grow Home is a charming indie game from... Wait, it's from UBISOFT? The same Ubisoft responsible for sequels I find largely unimaginative, lifeless, and an overall mess? Assassin's Creed seems like a yearly service instead of having the magnitude and gravitas that I believe a series like that deserves. Far Cry 3 felt like a step in the right direction with a bland story and characters. Grow Home is created by Ubisoft Reflections, and wow, what a great game. The game itself is fairly basic. You are a robot called Bud. There's a huge plant that you need to harvest seeds from in order to return to your spaceship 2,000 meters above the ground. Bud is also on the lookout for crystals that unlock abilities, and that's about it. The controls are really simple. The trigger buttons control the grip of each hand and allows the player to climb sheer walls and all manner of things. There are a few items like a flower that lets the player float a bit and an unlockable jetpack. From the first time I booted it up, I was instantly charmed. The minimalist design of the world and characters are a remarkable departure from the somber realism from a lot of mainstream Ubisoft games. I can't help but smile and laugh as the robot stumbled about and fell over, the looks of a weary sheep, and whatever is going on in this cave. At the heart of Grow Home is a weird paradox. Strictly saying, the controls and gameplay can be a little bit frustrating and slightly unresponsive. It actually serves the game. I know that's weird. If this is a Super Mario game, for instance, you'd really want that exact, precise controls that respond instantly to your commands. And Bud and Grow Home is a bumbling, silly, and uncoordinated mess. But coupled with the grip mechanic assigned to the controller's triggers, it compensates for this. The relative impreciseness of the controls give character and personality to Bud, and that really is something. So Grow Home is a wonderful, child-friendly exploration game. There are really no enemies to speak of, nothing to defeat, there's no bosses. Bud doesn't acquire weapons, there's no time limit or pressure really to do anything other than just kind of jump around and climb on things and find new stuff and put sheep on other sheep. Its weirdness really reminds me of Jumping Flash mixed in with a little bit of Totoro. It makes me smile, and I'm sure if you still have a soul, you'd like it as well.
Yeah, I like that game a lot, Dan. You like that game a lot.
It's pretty good.
Yes. You didn't cover that there's actually an extra item in the game.
Yeah, I didn't get to that point yet.
The leaf.
Yes, the leaf.
You glide around with the leaf.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's cool. You like the flower more, though.
Yeah, the flower.
I like the leaf. I like to fly. In addition to that, I found myself just wandering around a lot of times, grabbing things and putting them into the teleporter.
Yes, you mentioned that the other day, and I didn't know about that right away. I didn't know about that when I first played that game.
Yeah, your ship gives you nice little info tidbits on the teleport, on the animals and the plants that you find in the game when you throw them into the teleporter. And they stay there forever. Mm-hmm. So unless you actually pull that stuff out, at the end of the game I had a point where there was like 6 things sitting in the very bottom teleporter just floating there, including one of the sheep.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the point of, there's the overall goal of reaching your spaceship, 2,000 some meters in the sky. I've gotten to about 1,200.
I beat the game
in
one sitting. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's an objective to the game, but it's not really like what the game's about.
No,
it's kind of like just having fun and kind of stumbling around and really just experiencing the world that they made over there and just kind of goofing off.
And then jumping from really high in the air and watching your character fall and nearly die. And
I did that over and over.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's $9 on Steam.
Yes.
Everybody who has a PC that can play this game should play this game.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree.
Yeah. So, moving on, we're going to cover a game that I played that I have some mixed feelings about.
It's the sequel to The Wasteland.
No, it's not at all, Dan.
No? It's called Wasteland 2.
Yeah, Wasteland 2, not The Wasteland. The is the key differentiator there. Yeah, so why don't we take a look at the video? As someone who's been waiting for a true successor to the original Fallout games, and a huge fan of the post-apocalyptic genre as a whole, I was looking forward to finally diving into Wasteland 2 to see if it would fill the void that was left when the Fallout series went to first person. The results so far are a mixed bag. The game developed by In Exile Entertainment, includes members from the original Wasteland team, including Brian Fargo, who also went on to work on Fallout 1 and 2, so my expectations were pretty high. The game gets started on the right foot, with some good FMV and plot encapsulation of your role in the world, as well as setting up your initial quest. After the intro, you are given the choice of selecting your group of pre-made characters or trying to create your own. After briefly starting the game with the pre-made characters just to get a sense of how it worked, I decided to start a real playthrough with a custom team created from scratch. Here is where I encountered one of the first little issues I had with the game. The number of skills you have to choose from at the outset is extremely daunting. You have your weapon skills, social skills, and practical skills, all of which seem like they will be useful at some point. Trying to figure out what will not be useful is not easily apparent, and gives me the constant feeling like I'm always picking the wrong thing. The problem I see here is that too many of the skills don't feel different enough from each other. For example, why does there need to be a lockpicking skill and a safecracking skill? It just seems like an arbitrary decision to lock away certain loot unless you train in both. And there are at least 2 skills used to disable traps of some kind. I would have liked them to roll up similar skills to create a much more streamlined experience. And don't even get me started on the social skills, as they seem even more arbitrary, and all they do is lock you out of character interactions. I'm fine with defining your character as a hard-ass or a smart-ass, but I'd also like there to be some sort of fallback persuasion skill that I can take that will cover any situation. The gameplay itself is interesting, and definitely the part I feel is the most like the classic Fallout, and I enjoyed it the most. Moving around the world feels similar to the Infinity Engine games like Baldur's Gate. The difference comes when you do get into a battle. The encounter starts when you're spotted, and you can sometimes get a surprise round off before starting turn-based combat. Once the real fight starts, it switches to turn-based combat that is AP-based, and the game does a good job of displaying your movement and attack options in the area. While the nuts and bolts of the combat seem fine, I do feel that the melee feels less effective than range, with the AB cost, accuracy, and damage output of my range characters being on average much better overall than those who focused on melee. Onto the graphics. They weren't anything to write home about, and it feels a bit generic if I'm being honest. I kinda wish the world felt a bit more unique, as most of the areas I've seen so far remind me of places in the Matrix rather than a post-apocalyptic society. There's just something special about the way that the Fallout game looks, and so far I'm just not getting the same sensation about this game. One thing, however, I will praise is that the actual character portraits and concept artwork are quite fantastic. I just wish there was more of them. The story didn't seem like anything groundbreaking, and as someone who is obsessed with seeing as much content as possible, hearing the dreaded, "You're gonna have to make a choice" line made me realize they want people to play this game over and over to see everything, which just doesn't jive with the way I play games nowadays. I want to either be able to do everything and see your story, or don't present me with the option at all. I will say, however, that the consequences of these choices is really well presented, as you'll get radio calls from the choice you didn't make, with a growing desperation from those who you didn't help. I was really ready for a new post-apocalyptic game with some deep character creation, but I think in the end the game just isn't quite what I was hoping for, and I'm not sure how much more I'll end up playing. It was worth the discounted price I paid for it for sure, and if you're looking for a squad-based RPG set in a post-apocalyptic world, there are worse games you could spend your money on. This is John from Infinite Lives, and I'll be listening for your call on my Ranger radio, unless I'm in the middle of getting a field promotion.
And that was Wasteland 2. So, John, did you play Wasteland 1?
No, I did not play Wasteland 1.
Yeah, I wonder if some of the qualms that you had about that game with the skills and everything were just kind of leftovers from Wasteland 1.
Well, the weird thing is that, I mean, because like I said, this Wasteland came out before Fallout 1 and 2, so those are progressions of this type of game.
Yeah.
Or the original, I should say. This, you would think, would be a progression on those games, whereas I think they just, it's feature bloat. It's the same thing that happens with other games that where they have a really good core concept, and they're like, well, we got to add more stuff.
So, you know, I know you're a huge Fallout fan.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the originals. What about this game's, you know, you mentioned a lot of different things there that you kind of dislike, but what is like kind of like the big thing that really just made you kind of just not like it as much?
It was the skills. The skills alone just made it feel like I was not able to do everything I wanted to do in that game.
Yeah.
So, there was one instance, and I'll go into it a little bit. There was an instance where I had a speech option with a character where I had the skill for the first speech option.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have enough of a rank in the second option, and so I couldn't do it. I left the guy, and then I went back to try and talk to him again after I'd leveled up. You don't get that option again. So you basically, it locks you out of content because you didn't have it at that right moment.
Yeah, I really see that where you were talking about how it's really made to be played over and over again.
And it just, I don't want to do that now.
Yeah.
I mean, Fallout I can do that with because I can create a character concept, but I can still get enough of the other skills involved to make it my way through the game how I want to make my way through the game.
Yeah, so would it be fair to say that it's got kind of the environment? I mean, I know you had a couple things in the environment, but it kind of had the environment, it kind of had the setting, kind of had, kind of the setup in the beginning, and it's got all the post-apocalyptic stuff that, like, you like and I like, but, it kind of just falters under, like, its own gameplay.
It's almost there, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's really, it's a classic case of almost there. If they had maybe, I don't know, gotten a couple $1 million from the Star Citizen guys, invested into it.
Money and stuff.
I don't know. Like I said, it's got its pedigree. The guys who worked on Fallout 1 and 2 helped make this game. This just isn't those games, and that's what I was looking for. So.
Yeah, especially at what is it going for now?
I think it's $40 on PC, but I got it for like $15, and it does show up on the Steam sales for $15. So I'd say if you see it at that price, I'd try it out if you even liked the Fallout games at all, and see if maybe you'll have a better time with it than I will.
And it's got a DLC that's $45?
$50. $49.95 for the Red Boots DLC. I didn't click on it, but I'm guessing it's a whole nother campaign. So.
All right, so we come to our final game today.
It's a game we both like, Dan.
I like it a lot, and fair to say you like it a lot?
Yeah, oh yeah, I do like it a lot. We'll get into it, but why don't we watch the video first, Dan?
We're talking about Ori and the Blind Forest.
I'm not going to bury the lead here. Ori and the Blind Forest is amazing. First things first, this is the most beautiful game that I've ever played, bar none. The backgrounds are handcrafted, animations are just wonderful, and it really moves. The speed and fun of the gameplay is refreshing, and Ori easily takes its place amongst the most memorable platformers. The story is really pretty. It reminds me of a Miyazaki film. Ori comes from the Tree of Life, the land is cursed, and it's up to you to restore everything. It's emotional and wonderful and minimalistic. The game is reminiscent to Metroid, as you have a large world, new abilities let you visit previously inaccessible parts of the map, and you also get a double jump. I love how Ori moves around the screen so seamlessly. What really sets this game apart is the amazing level of detail. Look at the different jumping animations. Every single inch of this screen feels alive. A unique aspect to the gameplay is the save system. Akin to playing an emulator, you can save almost anywhere at the cost of some energy. Ori will now spawn at this point whenever you die. And you will die. The platforming puzzles are inspired heavily from Super Meat Boy, and that's a pretty great game to emulate if you're going to emulate any game. The difficulty can really spawn some frustrating sessions though. But like Super Meat Boy, I think it neatly balances itself between challenging and unfair. Now that doesn't mean Ori pulls any punches at all. This game gets fairly difficult. Every skill and ability that you unlock needs to be used in all kinds of situations. And the controls are just sublime. It has that precision and responsiveness that you really need in a platform like this. If there are any negatives, I'd say that generally the music is almost too subtle. But when it needs to, it really makes an impact. The difficulty can probably be a barrier for some players. The gameplay doesn't explain everything. It doesn't handhold at all. Once you unlock a few of the abilities, Ori assumes that you're comfortable with everything it just taught you and just kind of keeps throwing challenges at you. Ori really is video game heaven. It has beauty for days, an emotional story, awesome gameplay, and lots of challenge. Play this game right now.
So that's Ori and the Blind Forest. Dan, I like this game, but I have qualms.
What?
Yeah. I have minor points that I would like to talk about. I know, it seems crazy. Alright, let's get right into it. So the first thing that I will say is I love this game. It's fantastic. You should play it. But in the combat, which you were talking about as being quite simplistic, I had always had a sense, or I should say there were several times I had a sense that there was just too much going on the screen at the same time. Whereas it was detrimental to actually figuring out what was shooting at me.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. It's not so much there's, like, too many objects going on the screen. It's not like a bullet hell shooter or anything like that. But, yeah, there's a lot of, like, explosions and lens flare or whatever,
Yeah, whenever you're attacking with your little navigational partner and it's hitting the enemy, there's, like, a flash of bright light.
Yeah.
And so that sometimes covered up, like, a projectile that was coming towards me.
Okay,
that I couldn't dodge it. So,
I see that.
Yeah. The other thing that I was really, hung up on specifically was the fact that, and this is just me being a gamer, is with growing up with such a great autosave system, or growing into an autosave system, I noticed that there were some instances where the game would autosave for you, like if you got into a boss area.
Oh, yes, you're right.
And I wish it would do that on occasion, maybe not necessarily, as often as every other game does, but there were several instances where you would go through a sequence, you'd get a really good jump going, and you get into this kind of flow, collect a bunch of items, and then you would make a crappy jump, kill yourself, and then you realized, oh crap, I saved like 3 minutes ago.
Yeah, and you have to collect all of those items again.
Yeah, that's the penalty. You don't. It doesn't actually let you keep the items that you collect. You have to go through that whole sequence again and collect everything. But other than that, like I said, these are minor quibbles about the game.
I mean, going back on that, I could see where that could be a little bit of an issue, and kind of, you can almost maybe even think that it's kind of boosting up the difficulty, kind of maybe artificially, because the game's hard enough already.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. It gets you to the point where I'm almost about ready to, like, if there's been a sequence where I've gone through and it's a long one, and then I die, I'm almost to that point where, like, you know what, I'm just gonna take a break and not play this right now. But I still go back and play it, which is high praise for this game, which should tell you that I really like this, because I'm willing to run through that again, even though I made a stupid error and I don't like the fact that I have to hold down the B button to save. So
yeah, Ori and the Blind Forest, it's pretty good. You should probably play it.
Yeah, it's $20 on
Steam.
Yeah, Steam and Xbox One.
It's Xbox One only.
Yeah, I play it on
if
Xbox
you're
One.
Playing on a console. And that wraps it up today.
Yeah, we took a look at Lara Croft and the Temple of Osiris, Grow Home, Wasteland 2, and Ori and the Blind Forest. So yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you, watchers. Thank you for meeting the games with us.